Welcome to episode 88 of Sport SA Daily Diary. Today we're chatting to South African big wave surfer, lifesaver and sailor, Greg Bertish. Afternoon, Greg. How are we doing today, mate?
Hey, Adam. Good, thank you.
Good. You've been keeping yourself busy during lockdown?
Yeah, I have actually. It's a strange thing, fallen into a few different avenues, as we all probably have. But very involved with COVID relief up the west coast, helping the disadvantaged people up the west coast of South Africa.
Because obviously this virus has impacted you and your business quite significantly, but more from you personally with your surfing and supping and paddleboarding and all the stuff that you do.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, obviously, I think you realize that we are the lucky ones. We have less to worry about than a lot of people, and that sort of all falls by the wayside. Although after a good few days of not being able to do what you love, it's not that easy. But yeah, I mean, I've got a travel business that's been going 20 years, and that's basically shut down probably until close to 2021. So that's a tough one to swallow. But we'll carry on working, and we don't have lots of overheads and lots of staff. So that's been going 20 years, and it'll carry on going when it all kicks back in. And then I'm in the charity side with a foundation and the Little Optimist Trust. And yeah, we've got a bit of funding, and we got sponsorships. But even those, the big sponsors are reeling. They're battling, and they've halved what they can generally afford to pay us. So now we have to look for international funding and grants. But we normally work with children. We're in hospitals, and we're with those that are economically and health and marginalized economically and health wise. So I can't really go into hospitals at the moment. So we've sort of shifted our focus. And as I said, we're working up the west coast, up in Elands Bay. There's a lot of people here that have been, really affected badly in the fishing villages, the local fishermen. Although a lot of them do actually fish for a living, they don't have all the permits and the access to getting the commercial fishing rights. So a lot of them are unemployed and have been unemployed now for three months, and there was already a lot of unemployment here. So we've been raising money and distributing food hampers and Easter eggs at Easter, and helping with the school feeding program, and helping with the soup kitchens, and delivering literally tons and tons of fresh vegetables and potatoes and food to the community here.
Yeah, sure. That's very good of you, Greg. Let's talk about you a bit. As mentioned earlier, you are very much into the ocean and ocean sports. Have you always been a sort of water baby and involved in surfing and all of the activities on the ocean?
Yeah, we grew up in the ocean. My brothers and I, we grew up pretty much in Longabon Lagoon, which is also up the west coast. And we grew up with a family, with my dad being a full waterman and having, he actually water skied for South Africa and he was a big canoeist and sailor. So we grew up in the ocean, sailing, surfing, canoeing, windsurfing when windsurfing started, and then getting into surfing and big wave surfing after that, and then everything that sort of hit the water after that, whether it was kiteboarding or foiling or anything else, we got involved in. So yeah, I like to say that, as my dad used to say, we've got salt water in our veins.
Yeah, certainly sounds like. Greg, for us Varleys and non-ocean going people, what is the difference between normal surfing and big wave surfing, obviously other than big waves? But I mean, how do you really differentiate?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Look, I mean, over the years, there was nothing really that differentiated. But in the last sort of 10, 15 years, it's almost become seen as a different sport. In fact, it is basically a different sport. You use different, you've got to be able to surf, obviously, but you've got to have something a little bit different and special and crazy in you to want to go and throw yourself off two-story building waves. But yeah, there's a separate world tour for big wave surfing as opposed to normal surfing. And it's just something that some people get drawn to. I think you have to love the ocean. You have to almost be at one with it a lot and feel comfortable. You still get very scared. I get very scared, but you want to overcome that fear, and you've got to, want to go and challenge yourself against the elements and use your skill and your knowledge and go out there and challenge the big waves, which are generally anything from the size of a house to the height of a house roof to three, 4 stories, even buildings.
That must be quite frightening when you're actually out there and you're like a little dot with massive wave. Do you use a different board for big wave surfing than you do for normal waves?
Yeah, they're different boards. You start with your general small wave boards, and then you work your way up. Generally, basically, the bigger the waves you're trying to catch, the bigger the board you're riding. Yeah, you got to match your paddling power to actually catch that wave. But if you're on a small wave, you can't catch the wave. I mean, on a small board, you can't catch a big wave that's moving very fast. It's a big chunk of ocean, literally. And we're riding boards that are generally around the 10-foot range. So, you know, the standard small board is 6 foot, probably around about that. So this is 4 foot longer, you know, and it's chunkier and bigger, and it can catch a wave. It's not very easy to turn, but you've got to catch the wave before you can ride the wave. And that's what it's about. And then you do have tow surfing, which we used to do a lot of. We don't do so much. It's all gone back to paddle surfing. And then you can use a much smaller board and you actually tow, but then you tow it into the waves with a jet ski and you sort of slingshot into giant waves. And still the biggest waves ever ridden are generally have been you've been towed into.
Yeah. And with the big wave, do you do as many sort of tricks as the guys do on the smaller waves, or is it just really about riding the wave?
Oh, the guys wouldn't like you to call them tricks, huh?
Ignorance of a
no, it's much more soulful as a big wave surfer. We don't do tricks. No, I'm just laughing because there's some of the big wave surfers would say would question that. But look, it's you know, there's no it's almost survival out there. You've got to make the drop. That is the biggest rush, is taking off, paddling with your own power with your arms, and positioning yourself first in a giant ocean, positioning yourself in the right place of a giant wave that's, you know, moving at 30 kilometers an hour towards you, and you got to position yourself in that position, not get wiped out and crunched by it, and you got to take off and drop down into this thing, and then bottom turn and get the hell out of Dodge at the bottom, basically. Look, the youngsters and the new age of big wave surfing, what they're doing now is incredible, and the guys are just trying to pull into the biggest barrels and even turn on the waves, like, you know, turn the big boards on the waves and pull into barrels. And yeah, there one or two of them are even trying to do a few tricks. So it's happening. It's all changing. But you know, when you got a big board, it's very hard to control it, other than to bottom turn and do a top turn. But now the guys are getting big barrels.
Yeah. And where's the biggest waves that you've surfed so far in your career, Greg?
Probably here in South Africa. I've done a bit of big wave surfing around the world. I still prefer home, just because it's less crowded. There's less people, which means you get more waves. You can travel to Hawaii. You can travel to many of these places that are now on the map. But you got to have a lot of money, and you got to have a lot of time, and you've got to then go and, you know, sit in a crowd, because everyone wants to be seen as a big wave surfer now. Everyone's trying to make it and get a photograph, and it's become quite the in thing, really, with the new inventions of flotation vests, where you got vests that you can actually pull cords and they inflate underwater. So, you know, people are prepared to take more risks. In the old days, which was only going back 5, 6, 7 years now, they didn't have those sort of things, and it was every man for himself. And if you didn't come up, you had to swim up. You couldn't just pull a vest and hope you would come up with air pulling you up. But now there are a lot more people in the more well-known places. And South Africa's got some of the biggest and best waves in the world. I've been surfing a wave close to where I am now that's world class. We had very giant surf just 2 days ago, and it was absolutely amazing. And then some of the biggest waves we've surfed here that I've surfed are at Sunset Reef and Dungeons Reef, which are right here in Cape Town, Kommetjie, and Hout Bay. And internationals travel the world to come and surf those waves.
Yeah. And not cold. I mean, Cape Town water is bloody freezing. Do you obviously feel wetsuits and...
It's cold and it's sharky. But that's when you're out there and the waves are that big, those are the last things you worry about. It's more about the 2 or 3 story building that's moving towards you. But yeah, look, Cape Town's not the easiest place to surf, but once you've surfed here, you can pretty much enjoy yourself anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, Durban becomes a pleasure. Greg, you followed in your father's footsteps in terms of representing South Africa, not in skiing though, but in supping. Is the correct term?
That's correct. Yeah, stand-up paddleboarding is known as SUP or SUP. Yeah, it was very special actually in 2012. 2 reasons it was very special. For me personally, it was very special because I had undergone some massive medical setback in my life. I'd been infected by tropical bacteria first in 2001 while traveling in the tropics. It attacked my heart valves. A long story short, I ended up in hospital over a 6-year period. I spent 200 days in hospital, and I had to have 2 open heart surgeries. And this bacteria was undiagnosed, unculturable, and it kept coming back. So I fought that over 6 years, and eventually after the second heart operation and another infection after that, I spent 90 days in hospital at one stint, which set me on my path of what I do now and why I help kids. But after that, coming back from that I never thought I'd be normal again. And then going on to do what I'd love doing and getting back into life saving and surfing, and I was already in my late 30s then when stand-up paddleboarding had started in the world around 2005, 2006, got to South Africa 2008, 2009, and they held the first world champs in Peru in 2012. And Team South Africa was selected, and both my brother and I were selected for the team, which was quite special. That was the other special thing.
Sure.
And we were both represented South Africa in the team of, I think, 6. And we went over to Peru and competed, supping at that stage. And, for the next few years was very big. And it was the world champs, and we competed against 26 other nations. I think that year Australia won it, then America, and little old South Africa came in 3rd. So we got our bronze medals, and I got to race and travel with my brother, an amazing team. And then as a multiple heart surgery survivor, it was quite a big, something that I could actually be proud of. I suppose, I was very proud of that because I could show kids, and I could show people who never thought they would amount to much, whether they're being bullied, whether they come from a disadvantaged background, whether they've, and that's what, like I said, that's why I work with the kids that I work with now. And I work with a lot of kids who are, on cancer treatments, who have brain issues, who've on dialysis, who've lost their limbs, who've had amputations, and they think that their life is over, and they think that their life will never be the same. And, especially in South Africa and Africa, you see these little kids who lose a leg in a road accident. And literally, everything they eat, dream, sleep, breathe is soccer. They lose their leg and they think their life is over. They think they'll never be able to kick a soccer ball again. And they almost don't want to live. And that's where we help and we step in, and I can show them firsthand, look what happened to me. Look what happened to me. I've had 2 open heart surgeries. I'm a middle-aged man, and look what I went on to do. And I would never have thought I could do something like that. And straight away they listen. And that's why the little book that I wrote, helps his kid understand. And then we bring in other little optimists, we call them, other survivors, amputees like a Caleb Swanepoel, someone you've got to interview, and other survivors who've gone through strokes, who've gone through heart operations, who've gone through brain cancer, who've lost limbs, and they've shifted their whole life, and they shifted their perceived reality. And that's something that I like to use, the perceived reality of what you can do with the rest of your life as an amputee or as a heart patient. If someone had told me that I was going to be a heart patient first, I would never believe that. And then had 2 open heart surgeries and spent 200 days in hospital. And then I would go on to win gold medals in life saving and go and represent South Africa and be a South African champion, as a heart patient. I would never have believed it. And these kids then see how like a Caleb Swanepoel has gone on to represent South Africa in adaptive surfing with one leg. He was never a surfer. He had never even surfed, but he had a shark attack him while he was swimming, and he changed his whole life. And now he's training for the Paralympics, for swimming. So, and these kids who are lying in hospital have just had a limb amputated. Suddenly you see their eyes sparkle again, and they, for the first time, they see a prosthetic leg, which they didn't even hear about or know about. And they see this guy who's like a god to them, built like a brick S house, and he's a machine. And there's a lot of them. There's Ahmad Hassim did the same thing, and that's all a kid needs. Going back to, that's all a bullied kid needs. That's all a kid in a little rural town in the middle of nowhere who thinks he won't amount to much because he's got no money. He's never been to a big city. He's in a terrible little school. And he thinks that he could never get out of that situation. And that's what we try and do now. through our trust, we try and show these kids, you know, a reason for carrying on and for not only just surviving, but for thriving.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, just back to your open heart surgeries. You spent 200 days in hospital. Is it all clear now?
Well, are any of us all clear? You never know what's around the corner. And I think, you know, that's something that I've had to take from this and realize that, you know, no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. It sounds like cliches. And, you know, the one thing is when you've nearly lost your life a couple of times, cliches, you realize why they said and said again and why they are cliches, because they're actually damn true. And, you know, I don't know, you know, if my heart is 100%. I've had 2 open heart surgeries. I've got metal valves and donor valves in my heart. It's functioning very well, thank you. It's ticking, as I always say. They have not found a cure really for what I have. They never diagnosed the type of bacteria. It's a tropical bacteria, unculturable, no name. And the cure for me how they killed it was to put me in hospital for 3 months on drips. And I stayed in hospital with a drip in each of my arms for 3 months, and they pumped every known antibiotic known to man into my veins to kill this thing, and it worked. So, you know, worst scenario, I would have to go do that again. I now watch myself I'm on the blood thinner warfarin, which means my blood's thin, I bleed easily, which is something I have to manage all the time. And even though I still surf big waves and I have to be very careful, I wear a helmet. I've changed the way I do things. I'm managing. I'm much more careful about where I go and what I do, and I have to be. But I still feel that I'm an inspiration to many who've gone through something similar, because, you know, doctors will often say you shouldn't do that, and maybe I shouldn't be doing some of the things I'm doing, but it is my life and it is what I love doing, and I can't go and sit on a couch and not do anything like that, because. Yeah. You know, I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be living, and I wouldn't have been able to help as many people as I'm helping. And I know that I'm inspiring when I go to these schools, you know, and that's a cool thing. And that's why it sort of did choose me, something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, what I went through. But, you know, I think that's another thing, you know, you've got to, at some stage, you've got to be positive, or you've got to be negative about it. And at times I was very negative, and I was, you know, another cliche, why me, at the time. And I actually met a little baby while I was lying in the ICU, almost dying myself. And I almost wanted to give up because I was so sick, and I'd been there for so long, and I was almost dying. And I was, why me? I'm 31 years old. And then I looked to my right, and there was an old man lying next to me. And I just thought, you know, that sure, when I'm 85 like him, sure, I could be lying here having a heart operation like that. And then I looked, you know, and I felt really sorry for myself. And then I looked to my left, and on my left was this little 6-month-old baby. And this little baby was lying next to me on the other side with all the same wires and the same tubes and everything. And he just had an open heart surgery as well. And I suddenly realized how lucky I was. Yeah. And everything changed. Everything shifted for me. And I realized at 30 how lucky I was. I had lived 30 years. I'd done all these cool things. And this baby had his whole life ahead of him, and he was fighting for his life. And he actually made me fight, because night and day, I saw him fighting, gurgling, gasping, almost dying. And I just saw this little baby, this life, like just fighting. He wouldn't give up. And that's when I thought, like, who am I to, like, you know, be negative and shut down and give up here? I'm going to fight as well. And we fought. And I'm proud to say that that little baby now works with me. That little baby's 15 years old. Sure, in fact, he's 16 years old. And he now works with me. He's one of our little optimists. He comes and he does talks with me. He's a fantastic guy, huge inspiration. His name's Adam Klopper. He's just qualified as a junior NSRI member. He plays soccer. He won his league in soccer. Amazing guy. And he helps me inspire thousands of kids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you certainly inspire. And you mentioned earlier the doctors told you to not do some things. You did do a bit of a crazy thing in April of 2016, Greg. You sailed a 8-foot children's dinghy around the coast of the Cape Storms, 200 kilometers to sort of tie into your 200 days in hospital. Tell us a bit about that and how that came about.
Yeah, I mean, you know, on paper it seems crazy, and maybe it was a little bit crazy. but when you've grown up in the ocean and you've sailed all your life, not as crazy. I mean, there are far crazier things that people have done. But it was, I grew up, like I said, I was bullied and I was insecure. And one of the things that I loved doing was sailing. And we learned to sail in a tiny little boat called an Optimist. And an Optimist dinghy is one of the biggest sailing classes in the world. There are Optimist dinghies all around the world. And they are a children's boat. They are 8 foot long, 3 foot wide, and not very tall. And they are designed for children up to 15 years old and 50 kilograms. And they are designed for lakes and lagoons. And that's how children learn to sail. And some of the greatest sailors have learned in Optimists.
Yeah. In a lagoon, not in the sea.
Yeah, that's right. And I learned in that, and I love my little Optimist because I literally would get in my little boat and I would sail off into the sunset on the lagoon, and I'd forget all my problems behind, all my bullying, all my sadness, and I would go sailing. And actually, when I was about 10 years old, I said to my dad at the time, I said, Dad, one day I want to sail an Optimist from Cape Town to Longabon. And my dad was like, he was way ahead of his time. He was a very positive sort of guy. And he looked at me and said, geez, that's so cool. What a great idea. You should do that. And as we all do as children, we forget our dreams. And I forgot my dream until I was lying literally on that operating table. And I said to myself then, I was like, you know what? I promised my dad that I would sail an Optimist. If I survive this, I'm going to sail that Optimist, because why haven't I? And I'm going to sail from Cape Town to Longabon. And lo and behold, it took me a couple of years because I was sick many times after that. But I went off and I took this little Optimist, and I thought, what cooler way to do it than to take this little boat that everyone thinks is too short and too fat and adults shouldn't sail, and it shouldn't go in the real ocean. And I could just shift the perceived reality. I'm not trying to be the first person. I'm not trying to do it the fastest. I'm not trying to be a great adventurer. He's going to do it in his own way. He's not going to go and try and race there and stay overnight and just take on the elements. He's going to sail. And I thought, let's make it charitable. And I thought, okay, well, let's do 200 days for the 200 day. Let's raise 200,000 Rand for the new ICU at Red Cross for my 200 days that I had spent in hospital. And I thought, well, Cape Town to Longabon is just over 100 kilometers. So let's just make it 200 kilometers. So it'll be 200 kilometers. 200,000 Rand and 200 for 200 days in hospital. And I sailed from Cape Hunklip across False Bay, around Cape Point, and then up the west coast of South Africa to Longabon Lagoon. And it took me 8 sailing days. Over 2 weeks, I had to hunker down. I was stuck on islands and I was stuck on beaches for many days where there were giant seas and huge storms, and the little Optimist couldn't launch and go out. But he bided his time. And he did it his way, and nothing was going to stop him. He had a very big heart, and he knew he was very slow and very short, but he was going to show everyone that he could do it in his own way. And I used that story to show kids, that a little boat that no one thinks could do it, and a middle-aged man who's had 2 open heart surgeries could climb in a boat and totally shift the perceived reality of what teachers think, of what doctors think, of what humans think, and of what kids think, and do it their own way. And that's why I wrote the little children's book, because I had the children's book in my mind when I was doing it. And I didn't want it just to be a little story book for kids, a little cartoon book. I want them to get, as they do, they get to the end of the book and then they read about a real little Optimist. And they look at it and they go, oh my goodness, there is a real Optimist. It's not just a story. And so it all ties together quite nicely. And, so when you do speak to kids, they get it. And that's the cool thing.
Yeah. And Greg, just in closing, it's been great chatting to you, but in closing, what's next for you? You've done world champs, you've represented South Africa, you've won gold in life saving. Are there any more big plans for Greg in the near future?
Look, there are always. We have to adapt, and we I'm definitely getting a bit longer in the tooth, and we can't expect to win gold medals and represent South Africa and do those kind of things anymore. But I carry on surfing. I carry on doing the sports I love. And I think that's very important for all of us to do, continue doing things you love doing, especially as you get older. You often see now, with your parents or grandparents, once an older person loses that passion to live or passion for something, whether it's work, whether it's golf, whether it's chess, whatever it is, once you lose that, people degenerate and go backwards very quickly. And you often see that with people who retire. Their whole life has been, let's say, advertising. And
Yeah.
suddenly at age 65, they retire and they've got nothing to live for. They've got nothing to get up in the morning. Some people love it because they just go and play golf and they do all other things. But other people, that was their everything. And you just suddenly see how a person, you know, goes backwards. And so I think that's very important. I'll continue doing those things. And then, yes, we've got a very unique, amazing project planned for either later this year. The COVID-19 has thrown a little curveball. We're waiting for funding, hopefully international funding that's coming in to help us do what we're doing. We have set up during this last year a sailing academy, where we actually now the One Little Optimist has got 35 friends. We have 36 Little Optimists, and we have a little sailing academy now in Cape Town at Sikufle Yacht Club, and we run sailing therapy days for disadvantaged youth, and we hold, you know, these youth development sort of workshops for them. We teach them to sail, often not even teaching them to sail, but just getting them to sail and getting them in a boat for the first time in their lives. We work with a lot of NGOs and charities like Reach for a Dream Foundation, 9 Miles Project. We bring these kids out of these areas. Often they are compromised health-wise, or they're compromised socioeconomically, and they get in a boat for the very first time in their life and they go sailing. And you can just see this freedom and release and this natural injection of positivity that comes into it. And then we teach them about water safety, and we teach them about the environment and pollution. And we try and instill the growth mindset. So these kids leave there incredibly positive. They leave with a little certificate that they're a sailor now, and they go off and they spread the word. And we're trying to take that to the next level, where you can actually come and do a 3-month or a year-long course with us. And we're looking for funding for that at the moment. And we're planning an amazingly unique project now, where we're going to take these little boats into Africa. So we're actually going to take them and be able to not only have our sailing academy at the ocean, but we're going to take our sailing academy inland, and show kids how to sail and give them sailing therapy and introduce them to the concepts of ocean health and plastic pollution and water safety. And hopefully leave a trail of goodness and big smiles behind us.
No doubt you will, Greg. It's been really fantastic chatting to you today on Sport SA Daily Diary. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing. Certainly, it doesn't go unnoticed.
No, thank you very much. No, it's an honor to be here. I see some of the people you've interviewed, and I don't quite fit into those big names, but hopefully from left field I can come in there with my unique little approach here and inspire 1 or 2 people. So thank you. I appreciate your time and what you're doing here. It's amazing.
No problem. No time you off. Thanks very much, Greg. Take care.
Cool. Thanks, Adam. Bye.
Don't miss tomorrow's episode of Sport SA Daily Diary, where we chat to a young man who's recently become a world champion in clay target shooting.